The year is 1995, and everyone either has a Sega Saturn or a Sony PlayStation as their new console, with the Nintendo 64 well on its way. So what's going to come out on none of those? Comix Zone. The idea of something new and shiny release coming out on an older system isn't an old idea at all. However, for some reason it's always looked down upon by consumers and peers. Take nowadays for example. Imagine if Yooka-Laylee was coming out not on PS4, Xbox, or the Switch hopefully, but it just came out on the 360. Yeah, you'd be confused, but that wouldn't stop you from buying it, would it? Comix Zone was received very well, and was praised for being one of the very few video games that tried to emulate a comic book style. The idea for Comix Zone was originally put forward by Peter Moravich, and he had created an Amiga Commodore demo video animation titled Joe Pencil Trapped in the Comix Zone. The video was made in 1992 and was showcasing the animations and how the gameplay within the comic book style would be blended together. And naturally, who else would notice such an idea but Sega? The idea was taken into development as Comix Zone and was kickstarted, however it would be many years until we saw a public release. Story time! The main character, Sketch Turner, is working on his own comic book named Comix Zone, when suddenly a lightning bolt hits his panels and brings to life the main villain of the comic, Mortis. Mortis wishes to kill Sketch so that he can become real and take over the real world. However, while Sketch is still alive, he possesses no such powers other than the ones that resides within the comic. So Mortis sends Sketch into the pages and draws monsters and minions to kill him. The moment Sketch falls into the book, he meets with the General Elise Cyan, who she thinks Sketch is the chosen one, not paying any attention to Sketch's protest. She sends him out to do the mission to stop Mortis and his plan to find a way to escape the comic world. It's a pretty neat story, isn't it? I really think this could be turned into a movie. Nothing fancy, of course, just a normal action movie with all of these elements sprinkled in. I think it could work, under the right direction of course. Anyway, moving on. Before I talk about how the game feels or plays, I have to talk about the two different ways you can play. You see, Comix Zone lets you play with either the 3-button controller or the 6-button one. I recommend the 6-button controller, makes things a lot less more complicated. Let me explain. With the 6-button controller, the mapping is laid out like this. The X, Y, Z buttons are for your inventory slots. By pressing one of these buttons, it'll use whatever item is in each slot. Left is connected to X, middle is connected to Y, and the Z is connected to the right slot. A and B are attack and jump, and C acts like your block. A nice little layout if I do say so myself. However, if you play with the 3-button controller, it's more like this. A and B are like before, however C cycles through the items and A activates the items, and Sketch will block automatically. I have way more fun with the 6-button way, but give both a try and see what you think. Whilst we're on the topic of inventory and items, they are all very important. You got such things like life potions, knives, bombs, and even your little rat Roadkill can help you find secret items and point you in the right direction if you ever get stuck. Plus you can do amazing shit like this. With that in mind, the controls were not a problem. The motion of the character was very nice, topped with the animation. It was like playing a cartoon, very satisfying, and the game's main focus and drive lies within its style, comic books, and it pulls it off very well. The speech is done through bubbles, the little yellow box appears to describe the current events, all attacking and hurting sounds are shown in a very Adam West Batman way. It's great! Also the little touches here and there too, like the big hand of Mortis coming down and drawing new bad guys, and flicks of paper flying off everywhere when actions are being performed. A lot is happening on the screen, and it's so nice to look at. I really think a lot of this game's memory is used on the graphical appeal, which is where one of my complaints comes in. Well, it's not really a complaint, it's more like a disappointment. The game's length is only 6 stages, so you make your way through 6 pages of the comic, and the stages are challenging enough to make them last a long time. Also, it punishes you quite fiercely if you die. But once you get used to the game and the controls, the game is very short. On a casual run, you can clear this game within half an hour if you know what you're doing, and that's where the problem lies. To new players, it is a bounty of playtime with so much to do, with a neat ending to keep you coming back for more. But to the more veteran player, it's a short romp through the woods. And I wish the developers made this game so that it would have come out on the Saturn, so this game could have been longer. And the very idea of Comix Zone being on a 32-bit game is boner worthy. However, we got what we were given, and we have to enjoy what it is. And that is a very entertaining video game. By the way, there are 2 endings. I won't tell you what the endings are, but I'll tell you how to get them. And it is a challenge. You will engage with Mortis in the final battle. However, Cyan is trapped inside a glass tube being filled with liquid. She will die if you do not defeat Mortis in time. And that's it. And Mortis is a tough cookie. I have such a hard time getting the good ending. You have to be so fast to beat this guy, because when he does bite the dust, you only have seconds to switch and save her. Not much room for error. But my god, when you do save her, it feels great. And it is one heck of a challenge. And Mortis can go on record as one of the most stressful boss fights ever. Not just because he will kick your ass, but because there is a time limit on your friend's life. Now that's one hell of a villain for you. As well as this game being released, there was also music CDs that came with it, and the CD contained enhanced versions of the video game's soundtrack using real instruments, which just sounds perfect. Again, this is the kind of stuff I can imagine if the game was put onto the Saturn. It would have been amazing! The instrumental remixes got a very nice blend of vocals and real-time instruments mixing rock and metal. It gets some sort of a Nevada and Soundgarden vibe to it. It's online if you can find it, and if you can find it and listen to it, tell me what you think, because I love it! Luckily for you folks listening, Comix Zone is very easily accessible in modern times. No need to go hunting down that expensive original print. Last time I checked, it was available on PSN, Steam and Xbox Live thing, is that what it's called? Also on many collection titles across different platforms. It's well worth trying at least once. I'm not the biggest fan of comic books. I'm really not. Tell you the truth, I've only ever watched movie adaptations and video game adaptations of these comic book titles, such as Marvel, DC and whatever. Comix Zone was one of the first games that actually had a comic book vibe that made me interested into the whole subgenre in the first place. And yes, it's very short, and yes, it's very niche, but my god, if people are still talking about it now, it really has stood the test of time, because people know about this game, and they're not even into video games. And if that doesn't convince you to try it, I do not know what will. Comix Zone is worth your time. Put that cheeseburger down and get to it. Thank you for watching this video. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter, and I also have a Vidme account, so check that crap out. And if you liked this video, then check out the Retro Game Geeks website at retrogamegeeks.co.uk. Plenty of archives of reviews and talks about old classic video games. I'm sure you'll love it. If you want to watch the previous episode, click the box on the top left. And if you liked the look of Comix Zone, might I suggest you check out Scott Pilgrim vs. the World video game, not the TV show or comic book. Well, you could check out those if you like, but the video game is very fun. Beat 'em up style in a pixelated way, it's just fun, and all it is just a fun beat 'em up, nothing too complicated. I highly recommend it. Thank you for watching, bye bye.